We're going to hear from Laura Janisse, Valerie Vegera, and Misa Misono. They're going to talk to us about Herd, designing a trusted online space for teens. So I will stop sharing and let them take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. Hi, everyone. I wanted to start this off by introducing you all to the world of Gen Z and mental health through the form of my personal favorite media, TikTok. So Misa, when you get a chance, why don't you go ahead and hit play, if you can.
Can everyone see this now? Okay, thanks. And it has audio, so I am hoping that I do not blow out anyone's ears. And if I do, my apologies.
Yeah. Okay, see ya. I feel so much better. Okay, bye.
So obviously a fun TikTok, one that I personally find funny, but it also kind of sets the tone for what we're going to talk about today. Kind of touches on, how the current mental health care system doesn't work, the frustration associated with mental health, and the way Gen Z uses social media as an outlet for all of that. So before we dig any deeper, hi, my name is Valerie. I am a part of Gen Z. My colleague Laura is going to be in the chat answering your questions. So if you have any, feel free to put them in there. And my colleague Misa and I are going to tell you how we use human-centered design principles to build a mental health platform that teens can trust, called Herd. So why exactly did we design at the intersection of Gen Z and mental health? Well, as we began our research into Gen Z, we noticed a key fact that was kind of really big. And it was that Gen Z was experiencing a mental health crisis. And so across the nation, preventable suicide was on the rise. Almost all teens were saying this was a problem. And maybe most shockingly, 2/3 of pediatricians didn't feel equipped to treat children around mental health. So if they can't treat our children, who can? And from Kaiser Permanente's perspective as a healthcare organization, Gen Z's mental health crisis was a massive problem. Yet the mental health care system was not designed with Gen Z in mind, and they are our current and future members. And you can go to the next slide, Misa. So we were in a situation where we had to do something for our future, for the future of Gen Z, for the future of our organization, and really for the future of the world. So as we continued our human-centered research, we learned a couple key things that were going to be incredibly important in designing a solution to Gen Z's mental health crisis. So first off, and honestly, most importantly, and why we're here today, is Gen Z does not trust easily, and it's for a really good reason. The world around them doesn't foster trust. And next slide, Misa. Doesn't foster trust, and they had to adapt and learn to survive. And this is an important reason why the current mental health care system doesn't work. Gen Z doesn't trust it. And next slide, the second thing is that Gen Z is incredibly overwhelmed. They have so much going on in their personal lives, in their families, and honestly in the world around them. And they need help that doesn't pile up on top of all the other stressors in their lives. And third, Gen Z feels stuck with a mental health care system that is inaccessible, inconvenient, and doesn't fit into the context of their world. And so with these three insights in mind, we asked ourselves a really big question. What can we as Kaiser Permanente, we as people in healthcare do about this? And the answer was to create something that Gen Z can trust. And we did so by seamlessly integrating into their busy lives, providing meaningful interactions, and helping them safely navigate towards building mental wellness. Key emphasis on the words mental wellness. And that creation is Herd. So Misa, if you want to go ahead and play the video.
Herd is an app that offers anonymous, positive support for the everyday moment in teens' lives.
It's okay. You don't have to have your life planned out. I'm 16. I don't have mine planned out at all.
Teens believe that Herd must be moderated to be safe. They like that trusted experts, such as KP's mental health professionals, might weigh in on their situation. An expert's response to a teen can make an immediate positive impact.
This is Chris Sanchez, mental health clinician, and here is some advice for an amazing 14-year-old dealing with anxiety and confusion. Here are 4 steps to help you. Grab a paper and a pen.
HEARD is about supporting teens in all of their experiences, not just when they're feeling sad or anxious. Support means celebrating happy moments too. Sometimes teens don't feel comfortable sharing their happy moments with friends or family. HEARD is also a place to celebrate.
I did it! I made it on the team! I can't believe it! I'm so excited!
I'm so glad you stuck with it, even at those times you didn't want to.
HEARD is a safe space online for teens to get support from one another and from the experts at KP. HEARD, a new teen support experience powered by KP. Listen, support, be heard.
Okay, so next up, sorry, this was just my, if all else fails, I have the video link here. I'm going to take you through our 5 design principles that we use to design HEARD. And alongside each of these principles is a question for you to ask yourself and your teams as you're thinking about designing new products, services, and experiences for the project you're trying to solve. So first up, the question is, could less personal data and information create more trust? And for us, that design principle was protect privacy and anonymity. And just reflecting back on what Amy shared at the beginning is treating data really wisely and thoughtfully is something that is really important in digital health, and especially for teens. And what we found here was that, you know, with a lot of things online, it feels like giving more information makes it feel more secure. But in this instance, it was actually really the reverse. And that, especially for teens that don't know who or what to share with, they felt that having that anonymity. So if here you see one of the posts that someone shared, all that you see is the age. And for the responses, it's a letter form of the age of the person that is responding. And that just created a sense of safety as well as freedom to express what is really on your mind. Our second question that we have for you is, can experts be more like advocates in order to gain trust? And for us, our design principles allow experts to be caring, not controlling. And advocates, the way that we're defining that is someone that is really supportive of you and is not necessarily trying to solve your problem, is not trying to diagnose you, just really there for you. And research, we were actually really concerned about this. If, you know, in a space that is safe for teens, what is the role of adults? The role of adults with sometimes scary mental health titles. And, you know, we brought this out, and it ended up being that this was a huge factor in what made teens really feel like thing that they could trust and support. And it's like, you know, it has to be moderated. It has to be someone that's knowing what they're doing. And just having these people here made them feel like this was a safer space. And so you see here, like Chris Sanchez was in the video, he doesn't have special like features or call outs, and you know, it's not like this totally different experience, but you can click on his, that little button that says, or that line that says experts, and really explore more about, see more of his responses or read more things. But he's just one voice among many in this. And that is really that transition from expert to advocate, and not about diagnosis as much as it is about connection and support. Our third one is, how can you ensure users have positive experiences? And I know on the surface, this seems like a super basic question to ask of like, why would you want to have a negative experience? But we'll hope a little bit more that will explain that. So for us, it was to facilitate, and for HEARD, it's to facilitate support, not social networking. And this is one of those times where like best practices may not actually serve your experience in the way that you want it to. And so in sharing this, you know, it, as digital natives, Gen Z is like, got it, listen, it's sort of like Spotify, and you know, I can listen to these things and go through them. And then we got questions like, oh, maybe I could reach out to someone, maybe I could form a group, and just they started to kind of pepper in all of these things that are really associated with social networking. But what we found is that social media can be a really terrible place for teens, and it carries baggage, bullying, identification. And so for us, that positive experience was removing and stripping out those things. And so the things like you can see on here, like you can hug someone, you can say you're not alone or say same. That's just goes into, it's not associated with you or anything, and it doesn't allow you to connect with anyone. And so that was a very conscious decision we made about the overall positive experience, and that it is really about support and not a network. Fourth up is, how can moments of joy being celebrated? And to really look at the whole picture, not just the negative side. And in health, it's really, really easy to just focus on the bad, like fix things, solve problems, diagnose. And for mental health, which had really limitation, probably among the wider population, but especially among, it was so negative that, it was really focusing on mental wellness and both sides that made this a really powerful place. And we heard story after story about teens wanting to share the good stuff and not having anyone to share it with, and of not having to have that fear like, oh, is someone gonna think I'm bragging, or my friend that had the opposite thing happen, I can't talk to them about it. And so this moments of joy was another really core part of the experience that was unexpected for us. And our last design principle and question for you is, what is one anchor that everything can revolve around? And third, it's keeping voice at the center of the experience. And especially when designing a digital platform, it's really easy for it to make it bigger and bigger and bigger, and like, oh, we need content, we need sponsorships, we need partners, and get really lost. And for that, for us, what we found was the thing that responded to audibly and emotionally and physically when they see this was actually hearing other people and also contributing to responses. And so that's why all of our screen designs and the UI is really focused on getting you into that listening experience right away. And that helps us prioritize too of developing. It's like, we don't have to worry about being the next MD or the different content. It's really focused in on that voice. So just to call out for you as you think about your experiences is like, what is that one thing that if everything else doesn't happen, it'll still be a good experience and it'll still be meaningful. And with that, I'll turn it back to Valerie to talk a little bit about what's ahead for HERD.
Awesome, thanks, Misa. So obviously, Misa just introduced you to the human-centered design principles behind HERD, but if you're anything like me, and I did see a couple things in the chat around this, you're probably wondering, where is HERD? Is it accessible? Is it in the App Store? Where is it at? So as of right now, HERD is a concept prototype. Now, we are working to socialize across our organization to find a partnership in order to be able to pilot this and test it in a real-time setting. And our hope is that we are able to build HERD so that teens have a trusted online space to be themselves and to find support. And we also really hope that through presentations like these, you and others like you can take even just like a tiny little nugget of information and use it in your own transformational design work. And on that note, thank you everyone for your curiosity. And if we have the time for it, I'd love to be able to answer some questions. Amy, I'll leave that up to you.
I think we can do one question and then we're gonna move on. But there are a lot of questions around the topic of measurement and how are you measuring success. So if you can speak a little bit to that, I think that might be of interest to the audience.
Yeah, of course. So, and Misa, feel free to add on to this. I know that you're definitely well-versed in the metrics side of things, but I know for us, we were really looking at healthcare for Gen Z as a whole and the impact that this could have. So HERD was really about being more proactive versus reactive. And so a lot of the measurements we'd be looking at are decreased hospitalization, decreased emergency room rates, decreased visits, as well as kind of the relationship side of things, which is the building trust with people. So those are things like higher brand recognition with Gen Z, better brand relationships with Gen Z. So those are just a couple of the things that we're looking at. Misa, I don't know if you have anything to add, but
Sure. From the app or platform perspective, one of the, sorry, I got a weird pop-up screen there. One of the things that we were looking at is, again, like it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality. And so we were looking at like things like how long does it take for someone to respond, and then kind of how evergreen do some of those responses become. And so looking at the quality of like, wow, this is an amazing response, we need to elevate that. And so if you look at it like music of, you know, what are the kind of the top hits, those are things that we were looking at, but it wasn't about, like signups or anything like that. It was looking at how do we have high quality responses, and looking at, that moderation queue of looking at it that way, as opposed to, like number of logins and signups, because there is no login other than on the moderator side, was looking at listens.